You're someone who draws inspiration.
We're rolling.
We're rolling.
Sorry.
We can start again. You're someone who draws inspiration from books and other successful people, but what has often stood out to me is your ability to remain patient, grounded and balanced. Obviously also chasing your own big sporting goals. I think that's not an easy skill to develop, something that I've navigated a lot. So if you could try and summarise it, what did it take for you to get there?
It's definitely the knee operations. So I wouldn't be the guy or the athlete that I am without the 3 knee ops. And of course, like, it's an awful thing, and I would never wish for it to happen to anyone. But in hindsight, I wouldn't go back and change it now, because I tell you what it does, especially the first knee operation for me. I was this 18-year-old. I just had my first GB cap and thought I was destined for the Olympics. Thought I was the best thing since sliced bread. And then you tear your ACL and you realise the whole world doesn't spin around you. The world just keeps going on. Everyone forgets about you, actually. And there's no better humbling thing that can happen actually to an athlete. I would never want it to happen to anyone. Let's get that clear. But it created the foundations for the person that I am today, and gave me humility. Actually, so I'm very grateful for it now.
No, I get that. It's fun. I've sort of said the same thing really, and I can't remember who said it, but they're sort of speaking on you don't ever adapt and evolve as a person until you've had to go through some kind of hardship.
Yeah.
And whilst obviously people will suffer much, much, much worse than a knee operation, obviously it has a big effect on, and especially when you're a sporting person, on the thing that you love to do. And I had it at the time I first won it, sort of when other things happening at the same time, sort of you realise, right, things aren't going well right now, and we're the only people that can do something about it, right? Totally. So it's, I get that, but I think tough.
Yeah, perspective is key at moments like that. And yes, while you feel like your entire world's coming crashing down behind you, there'll always be someone who's worse off. So you have to come back to what you're grateful for, what's good around you, friends, family, loved ones, professional life, as well. And there is more than the sport that we're in, but it's a big part of who you are, and that's okay. And if you weren't upset, it would be a sign that you weren't really that in it, or it wasn't that important to you. That's also okay, but it was to me, and each of my 3 knee operations have taught me massively different things about what the sport means to me, what it means to be an athlete and to have athletics or track and field as part of my identity. But you learn more about yourself every day, regardless of an injury, but they definitely help accelerate a lot of life lessons, for sure.
Biggest lesson that maybe came out of any of them?
You are not defined as an athlete. Your identity is not solely tied up in your sport. That doesn't mean that it's not a part of your identity, and it should be, because you've worked really hard at it, and it's a really important part of your life. But you are a brother, a son, a friend, a business partner, a business owner. There are so many ways that you can have a positive influence on society and on life, not just through sport.
No, I think it is true. And we spoke about this in the first episode of Maximus that we did, and he had recently moved from boxing to endurance sports, now coaching actually. And he was saying that was almost like the hardest part of it was not his reputation, but how people perceived him, because it had been so fixated on boxing and related to that. That moving away from it was like, well, hang on, you don't do this. But it's not as simple as that.
No, for sure.
Anyway, congratulations are in order.
That's right.
South of England combined event champion.
Yeah.
Try and summarise how that went.
Yeah, so listen, it's December, right? So to be competing in December is kind of not normal for track and field athletes. It's very, very early. Naturally, the nature of my discipline in the combined events, we compete at our national championships indoors anyway, quite early. So it's good to do a bit of a rust buster. For us, this one, the sole objective, this is my first combined events back since the 3rd knee operation. So there's a few unknowns as to how the knee would respond. We haven't really been in full decathlon training for much more than 3 months. So it's been about a 12-week run up to this. So it was a real tester for us to see how the knee was actually going to respond and react under not just the 7 events, but the competitive pressure, the change in intensity. So for us, we didn't want to attribute too much to the performance of this heptathlon, but it ended up being that we could really kick on and push on from there. Everything we did was off short approach, so we've still got a little bit more speed to add on all the disciplines.
When we say short approach, so just for people who maybe
great point.
Understand.
Yeah, so my full approach for the long jump is between 16 and 18 strides.
And this is your run-up essentially, right?
Yeah. Whereas at this competition, I just went off 10. And the same with pole vault. That doesn't stop the other competitors going off full approach. And a lot of them were, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that to tailor the intensity at which we pushed at, for me personally with my knee, we made that decision. Now, having done this competition, we'll now move back to a further distance. So it's kind of putting a little asterisk next to the performance, but ultimately that's what I was able to do on that day. We're now going to add more speed and see how the knee copes with that as well. But the overall competition, to summarise, was, for those that don't know as well, 60 metre. Actually, I'll test you. What are they?
Oh God, the heptathlon.
Yeah, indoor heptathlon, senior men. What would the
60 metre sprint.
60 start. Yeah.
1K.
Yeah, that's on the second day.
Yeah. Hurdles.
Yeah, 60 hurdles second day.
High jump and long jump.
Yeah. 2 more.
Do you do pole vault?
Yeah, that's on the second day. So you've got all of day 2.
Chopper.
Yeah, that's it, mate. Well, nice.
I'm impressed.
That is impressive. So there's 7 events, 4 on the first day, 60 long, short, high, and then the second day is 60 hurdles, pole vault, and the 1K.
Okay.
So a lot of it is about how you manage your emotions throughout the 2 days, and whether you run a 60 metre PB or your worst ever, you still turn up for long jump. Like, everyone turns up for long jump, obviously with a different score accumulated. But the winner is basically the one who has accumulated the most points over the 7 events. So it doesn't matter where you place at all. It's all relative score. So quicker you run, the higher score you score. The further you throw, the higher points you accumulate, and it's the winner is the one over the most. I didn't win. The only event I won was the pole vault. And in the first day, I was about 300 points down on the leader. And it's just about hang in there in your weak events. And really excel in your strengths, but basically it's never getting too high and it's never getting too low.
Jack said the same thing in a recent episode, actually, in different context.
It was the same learning lesson.
No, I think it's interesting because it's not necessarily about, as you say, it's like consistency is probably the key word there in terms of, can you perform well relatively in every event, rather than necessarily win 3 but be crap at the others.
9 times out of 10, the winner is the one who fucked up the least, basically. Tends to be who actually takes the overall title.
How do you find the kind of, because obviously it's quite unique in a sense if you sort of were to compare it to other events in athletics, but other sports as well, and that you've got obviously a few occasions across 2 days where you're performing, rather than say it being, obviously about football, like a 90-minute block, done.
Yeah.
Like, you've done obviously single events and obviously done that more in the past and whatnot. How do you find that kind of as a comparison? I'm sure you're used to it now.
I am used to it, and I'm now at 28. I'm one of the more seasoned combined eventers on the circuit still, and it really showed at the Southern Champs, just in how you carry yourself. Like, some of the younger boys, and fair play to them, they've got the energy to, but they'll finish the 60 and they'll be bantering, joking around and hang around and shoot the shit for half hour after the race. I don't have the energy or emotional energy to do that. We run the race, we go back, we put the compression boots on, we close our eyes, we switch off, we try to let go of the event and move on to the next one. So that's the biggest challenge, actually, mate. It's actually not the event itself. It's obviously rising to the occasion and being in the moment, but then when that moment has gone, you got to leave it. And you saw so many times this weekend where guys would mess up a shot put and they wouldn't let it go, and they would carry into the high jump. And whether they think they did or not, it clearly did. So that's a big piece, is staying present, but then being able to completely switch off. That's a skill that not many other sports, apart from some of the other track events where you run rounds or heats or finals, being able to turn it on and off. Like that over 48 hours is.
I was going to say, because there's probably in fairness comparables to other sports in the sense, but over like, if you take sort of like a football or a rugby or a basketball, whatever, where you've got a game and say it hasn't gone very well, yes, you've got to obviously switch off. You as you say, leave that behind and the next game. But you've obviously got to do that in like a much more confined timeline.
Yeah, really, really aggressive timeline. And the message carries across to all sports, to be fair. It's just, there's no point in reflecting on the event during the decathlon. Don't get me wrong, my coach and I will debrief on the entire competition, how we handled it, but then each individual event. We'll have loads more learning lessons than we would have even thought of if we were just training. So we learned so much more from competing and exposing our body to that stress. But no, you're absolutely right. In that moment, you can't reflect, actually, unless you have another attempt and you want to change something. But once that third attempt's gone, you've got to leave that event and move on. So really, really powerful piece, knowing when to reflect and when to let it go and move on.
Yeah. What are we feeling now? Like, I'm sure there's plenty of emotions on the day, but was it relief after the first one being bang? Were you excited for the next one? Or everything?
I think the first event was actually probably my highest risk event, the 60. I haven't sprinted flat out in that short environment yet this season, so getting through that I think was important. And then it was also the whole nerves of the whole occasion. Once that was gone, you're in it. It's all right, okay, cool. Buckle down, this time for long jump. And we've very recently changed leg for high jump. So I've swapped from my operated leg that I used to jump off for high jump to my non-operated leg. That comes off the feedback from some sports scientists and biomechanics up in Oxford. Just that even though my knee is safe and stable, the force output that I'm giving on the right leg and the speed and reactivity is way better, that it was worth making the change. So that was the only other event that was still a big unknown. Other than that, it was just the nervousness around making sure that the knee was actually going to be safe to do the whole heptathlon and deal with the warming up, cooling down, and the vasodilation and the vasoconstriction and would it swell as a result. But it didn't, it coped really well, so really, really grateful for that. And yes, fine, we won the event, which was awesome, and when the chips are down, knowing that I can perform like that is great. The main objective, and that we'll talk about being process driven more, I'm sure, throughout the podcast, but that was our aim. It was stay in the moment, stay present, stay focused on the drills, cues that we've focused on, and assess how the knee is. There was nothing else on our agenda other than that. The win is a huge bonus, and it's really good for here to have that going into English champs, but the main thing is the knee's healthy and I'm in a position where I can now push on and make more progress, which is awesome.
No, absolutely. Okay, right, so we've obviously sort of gone on a little bit there, but as I say, introduction as much as it can be now, who are you and what do people need to know about your approach to training?
Yeah, my name is Tom Chandler. I'm a decathlete from Scotland. I'm going to test you again now, Harrison. So what are the 10 events of the actual full decathlon?
I'm the one literally asking questions. Okay, 100 metres.
Yeah.
1K again, right?
No, 1500.
Oh, 15, damn. Hurdles.
Yeah.
Shot put, high jump, pole vault. There's another running event, isn't there?
Yeah.
So the 400.
Correct.
Yes.
Nice, mate.
I'm missing. I said shot put.
I can't remember.
I think I said shot put. Javelin.
Yeah. One more throw.
Discus?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't remember what you've not said. Could be long jump. I'm not sure whether you actually mentioned.
Did I say long jump? Oh,
you can come through. You come through.
Oh, cut it. Go on.
Hello. I'll go behind just in case.
No, it's fine. That's not a big deal.
Done.
Unless you want to be in it.
No, I'm good now.
Do you need to come through again, or can I start talking?
I will be getting changed.
Cool. Do you mind closing the door?
Yeah, duh.
Thanks. So the decathlon is a track and field event. There's 10 events over 2 days. So on the first day we run the 100 metres, then the long jump, then the shot put, then the high jump, then the 400. And then we go home, ice bath, massage, eat loads of food, try and get some sleep. And then we wake up the next morning, we run the 110 hurdles. We then throw discus, then pole vault, then javelin, and then the 1500 metres to finish. So it's 9 speed and power events, and then the 1500 is just grim. You're tired, you're hungry, you're sore.
At the end,
it's a rhythm event, aerobic event, obviously, but it's tough on the body, tough on the mind. In terms of accolades, I'm previous senior Scottish champion. I've come back from 3 knee operations, 2 of them being ACL reconstructions, one of them being a bucket handle meniscal repair, where they sewed it back up. All 3 of them were in track and field. I did them as well. The first 2 were doing hurdles, and the last one was throwing javelin. I have 1 GB international cap as a junior to my name, and I think I've got 4 official Scotland's caps, 2 of them as a senior, and then like a bunch of junior and under 17 ones through schools and stuff like that. My approach to training, I suppose it kind of comes in line with the philosophy of decathlon, which is you're constantly shooting for perfection. You're trying to attain perfection, but you're quite content that you'll never quite get there, and you understand that, and you're just trying to be the best version of yourself that you can be on any given day. And I think a really big message that I've taken certainly this year, with the knee being a little bit touch and go, is all you can ever ask from yourself and from anyone else is you do your best on a given day. Have you done everything that you can on that day, given your circumstances, whether that is work, family, social engagements, or training, or how your body is on that day? Have you done everything that you can? If that's the case, you go to bed pretty happy.
And then how do you find those sort of? Because I think again that's where kind of the athletic sports are quite unique in an event in the sense you always sort of hear when the Olympics were on, you can train for 4 years for this
one moment
race or whatever, and always the immense pressure on singular days, events and whatnot.
Yeah.
Do you thrive off that? Do you enjoy it? Is it hard? Is it something you just you've learned to accept?
For sure. It's having coached non-track and field athletes now as well. I get a bit of an insight into what it's like actually to be able to perform week in, week out. I get really jealous of athletes who get to do that actually, because say you mess up, you have literally 7 days to rectify it. Mm-hmm. If you're actually at the Olympic level, you mess up at the Olympics 4 years to sit with that, and everything that goes into the periodization and the tapering and the understanding of year on year how you progress for one moment, it is a lot of pressure. Now the reality is, it's important to disclaimer, I haven't been to an Olympics. Whether we make it to an Olympics or not, it is up in the air. It kind of depends on how the next few years go. But ultimately, we still have 4-year cycles, even for myself, but they're mainly based around the Commonwealth Games. So for me, my next big one is kind of coming up over the next 6-7 months in order for me to chase the qualifying mark to be selected for Scotland for those games. Do I thrive off that pressure? It's the first real time where I've been in with a real genuine shot. 4 years ago, I was the number 1 ranked decathlete coming into that selection period. There was another guy, Andrew Murphy, who was chasing the score, had it, and tore his pec in the winter training leading up to it. Again, just an external freak accident that meant that he couldn't go. Whereas this is kind of, without being too obnoxious, this is my time. I'm 28 years old, in the prime of my athletic career now, have accumulated 10, 12 years of technical build-up to get to this moment. And I used to think that this moment, or maybe even at the start of this winter, would become quite overwhelming, because I've set up my entire life and coaching business to be able to go all in now. I'll be honest, it's been anything but. It's actually been extremely liberating. And I've actually found that the more pressure I've put on it, the more it's actually my body and my mind have responded in the way I would have hoped for. In that they've risen to it and they've said, right, okay, well, if you're all in on this and you're really focusing on sleep, stress, nutrition, psychological impact, minimising workload in order to facilitate it, it's been really liberating. So TBC, whether the pressure gets me or not, but let's find out. But I do think it's a real tool if you get it in the right mind frame. But a lot of that comes down to how much energy and time you can attribute to your sport as to whether you let that pressure come to it as well. And I imagine the majority of the audience that we're talking to here are amateur athletes. And therefore it's important to understand the difference in pressure between our kind of pressure when we turn up to a competition or a game and a professional athlete that's actually their livelihood. Some might be semi-pro, but we can turn up to compete and understand that if we don't perform, we've still got a salary, we still have a job, we still have other things going on in our life. And that's not to say that professional athletes don't. They do have other things going on in their life, but their performance has a big influence as to how much they earn. And that's a kind of pressure that we can't even begin to wrap our head around. Whereas track and field athletes who are on national lottery funding, and I saw in the prep that there was a little bit of discussion about that as well. Those guys are on a salary to perform and to get a medal at an Olympics. And if they don't, the funding gets cut.
I was going to say, is it as simple as that? It's really like you get a medal and if you don't...
Yeah, so I don't think that much of the general public are aware of this, but basically, so when I was kind of not in the system, so to speak, but when I qualified for the GB Juniors, you just qualify for that one competition. That's it. So you'll get help and support and physio and kits and all your transport and everything covered for that one competition and the lead up to it. But as soon as that competition's done, that's it. You're back on your own. So the UK Athletics have a couple things set up, but the main funding source is national lottery funding. I can't remember how many. I think you have a stat of how many athletes actually fund.
75, I think, was the most recent number.
It's not a lot, and a huge chunk of that is relay runners as well. So I actually don't think there's any male multi-eventers on that list at all.
Oh, really?
So the number one multi-eventer in the UK, Lewis Church, has no funding from the governing body, that is. And that's because we are not seen as podium potential yet. So there are females who are on it because they're closer to the national, to the international standard. But it's pretty cutthroat, mate. It's pretty cutthroat. And so coming back to the original question around pressure, of course there's pressure, but it's only what I've put on myself. There's no external sponsors or markers saying we're leaving you if you don't perform X. It's all off my own back, basically.
Yeah, so over 1,000 athletes is the quoted number that I found from this source. It was 62 athletes for the 2025-2026 Olympic World Class Programme were nominated to receive national lottery funded support for UK athletics. So it's like less than 10%. It's tiny.
Yeah, and there's some politics to that as well, about where you're based and stuff. But ultimately, decathlon's not a sexy sport to be in. It's kind of like the marathon in that you can only do 2 or 3 a year, just because of the load it takes on your body. So you got to get that right. You're then not good enough at an individual event to kind of really just rock up and perform at that and make some money throughout the season. Some of the top guys are, which is awesome. So yeah, it doesn't really attract massive amounts of sponsors because you're not that good at one thing. You're just all right at them all. Which is kind of how I fell into place with it in the first place.
Yeah, what was it you say? Sort of master of all class.
Jack of all
trades. That was it. Master of none. So go on then. Why decathlon? Why did that become the event for you?
Yeah, so pretty much everyone in Scotland starts off with cross country, which is at least when I grew up was part of the curriculum as a kid. Just absolutely loved it. Loved going out there racing and just we would. It was me growing up. I'm sure it was similar to yourself. Is that it was just like the early births of parkrun as well. So I'd rock up in Stirling, back up in Scotland, and I'd go out there and I'd sprint for about 400 metres, get to the front of the pack, and then just try and hang on. But yeah, so started through cross country. I think I made like regional, national kind of teams for that. Never international, but like made it to like the Scottish champs for that. My local club, Central AC, are like heavy into cross country and endurance distance running. They've had some awesome guys come through the ranks over the years. I then went to race in 800 metres at a track, and because of the nature of the conditions in Scotland, we have quite a lot of really good indoor facilities.
Sure.
Because we don't get to, the conditions outdoors aren't great. But I ran an 800 and saw some of the other events going on there. I wanted to give them a try. We went out to, I think we just went to the combined events group at the club, which is where I met my first coach, Kenny, and we just tried some of the stuff. Very quickly became okay at them. Again, in Scotland, I'm very lucky. I was quite a big fish in a small pond, so I had quite quick success in the long jump and the hurdles, and very quickly got national titles as a like under 16, under 15.
And when you say small pond, in what sense, just to be clear, in terms of like there's not many people doing it, or like the standard of support and whatnot isn't there?
No, it's mainly just uptake. Most 13, 14-year-old boys are playing football or rugby, especially in Scotland. And I was doing both as well, and I absolutely loved them, to be fair. Love team sports, and that is one thing that I really crave from my training, actually, is the importance of training with a group of guys and girls. But no, yeah, just uptake. So like competing at getting a national title in Scotland it's a big deal. Don't get me wrong, but it's the same as maybe like a county championships in England,
right? Sure.
Or regional championships in England. Just on the sheer population size is all. So yeah, had some immediate success there, and it's really fun to do things you're good at. That was always really nice. And I was making regional like football and rugby, but I was making national, and then very quickly when you're younger, you do a pentathlon, so you do 5 events all on one day, and I very quickly got selected for Scotland for that. Again, even smaller pond. There's probably about 20 kids at that age doing it. There's probably a bigger uptake now, but probably about 20 at the time. So quite easy, I say, to make a national team. That was an easier place to make a national team, and had early success there. Then got to represent Scotland in long jump and hurdles, and it just kind of all grew from there. So I was really came onto the scene nationally in terms of Britain as an under-17 athlete.
And was that when it sort of became serious? You say, like, obviously you were doing rugby and football. Like, when did it sort of like you put everything else aside? Right, hang on.
Probably second year under 17. Like when you're starting to think about uni or what you do after high school. Yeah. That was probably then I had to make a call as to whether they would negatively impact. For anyone that's listening that is kind of that age, my biggest piece of advice is try and stay in as many sports as you can for as long as you can. Just keeps your options open, but the biggest thing is that you want to follow the sport that you actually enjoy the most, not necessarily the one that you're best at. I think it's really easy to fall into and worry too much about performance too early. But the reality is for the next 10, 15 years at that age, you're going to continue to compete. So make sure that it's the one that you love doing, not just the one that you're told you suit. I think that it can be a tricky balance there. But yeah, I had to make that call probably around that age. Athletics is a funny one in that I actually think everyone takes themselves too seriously, and even at a young age as well. It's a very binary sport in that it's pure like I'm faster than you. That's it. That's black and white. So there becomes a very clear hierarchy within performance as well. But then there's also there has to be a big form of self-confidence. Anyone that performs, whether that's a musician or an athlete, has to have self-confidence. But I think in track and field, the aura that you carry is one of the only ways that you can actually influence another athlete and another competitor. You can't touch them. So I think self-confidence is a huge part of it. But I do think we then run the risk of taking ourselves too seriously as people. And that's why one of the biggest lessons I've learned through injuries has actually been that you can have that aura and that energy when you're at the track, but it doesn't mean you have to be like that all the time. For sure.
No, I think sort of having that time to switch off from it, being able to turn it on almost is a skill in its own right.
Yeah.
Just being able to do it to start with is good. turning it on and off, hard but necessary, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to sort of just go into the points thing a bit, because this is actually something that I just didn't really fully understand. I think could be maybe interesting.
Mm-hmm.
You said the current standard is 7,516 points, and you've got the June 7th target of that. Who sets that? How does it work? Is that just sort of outlined by Scotland, and it's like that's what you need? And
yeah, so they make that decision. Again, I'm not on the selection committee, but I believe it's that places you in the top 5 or 10, basically from the last Commonwealth Games.
Sure.
So that's what they're looking for. You'd like to think it being home games means that they're more entitled to want to take more homegrown athletes, regardless of that score. But ultimately, that's their minimum expectation criteria. So if you don't score that score, then they have every right to say, you didn't score it, we're not going to take you. And that's only a minimum requirement as well. I may score 7,517 and someone else might score 7,518. And they have every right to take the guy who scored 1 point higher than you. They'll take more into consideration on current form, fitness levels, head-to-heads will all come into play. But ultimately, they can take 3 decathletes, and they can take 3 decathletes who have all scored that score. Okay. They also have the license to take athletes who haven't scored that score, but they're under massive pressure financially. With it being a home games, you'd like to think they would take more athletes, but the reality is they've already come out and said that they're only going to take 25 athletes, and that includes relay teams. So that could take up 4 or 5 spots on one team.
And that's across the whole.
That's all athletics. It's all track and field.
Many, is it?
It's not a lot, mate. It's a real shame. You always hear, mate, around the selection time, so come June 8th, 9th, 10th. Normally, athletes will complain about that size. I think it's really important that we start that conversation now, because it's all well and good complaining about it then, but the reality is these are the rules, these are the laws that have been set. You either kick up about them now, or you shut up and achieve them. And I'm very happy to kind of hang my hat on, listen, I'm going pretty much all in on it this year to try and get that standard. If I don't get it, then of course I can hold my hands up and say, wasn't meant to be. But I'd hate to look back on my late 20s when I'm older and say, oh man, I wish I'd worked with a sports psychologist for a bit longer, or I wish I paid more attention to my nutrition. But this is the time for me to really go all in on it. And it's quite an audacious attempt, really, because my current PB is 6,913 from back in 2022, so that was pre-NEOP as well.
Yeah.
So to put 600 points on your score is like, you wouldn't expect to do that in a season.
Sure, I was going to say, that was kind of be the next thing, is how does that look, the practicality in terms of what have you got to do to get those 600 points?
Yeah, so I'd probably need 5 or 6 PBs to happen within the decathlon. Now, I might PB in those events in the build up to it, and then all of a sudden they don't feel like PBs. PB's personal best.
Yeah.
But I have the beautiful thing about the decathlon is there's more than one way to skin a cat, right? There's loads of ways I can get to 7,516. I could run a huge PB in the 100, but cock up my long jump, or I could run an average 100 and PB in the long jump. And so there's loads of ways. We won't really know how close we are to the score until the last event, the 1500.
Right.
So we're planning to have 2, maybe 3 attempts at the score between like April and June. And if we're not on for the score after the first day or after a few events, we might step aside from that event, stay fresh, and then go and do another attempt.
So do you is it based off your score off of one decathlon event that you perform in, or is it taken from, it's a singular?
No, it's pretty brutal in that respect. It'd be nice if they just took your performances over the 10 events accumulatively, and maybe one day they might do that. But no, it is literally, you have to have a perfect weekend.
Yeah.
And you have to get the score within that. Now, don't get me wrong, for some guys score 9,000 points. And for them scoring 7.5, they'd be able to work at 50-60%. And that spectrum is pretty huge. But that's why they have a minimum standard. That's why they have a qualifying standard. But one thing's for sure, I'm going to be absolutely all in on it this year. I'm really, really excited about that as an opportunity.
For sure. And then you get the points based on, because I feel like I don't want to get sort of too nitty gritty about it, but I just think it's kind of interesting.
It is interesting.
So if you say, I don't know, put I don't know what you jump up in, but like say 2 inches on your pole vault or high jump, whatever it is. What does that look like in terms of points margin increase?
I'm actually really not as much of a nerd on this stuff as I used to be. But like 3 centimeters or 5 centimeters in the high jump is something like 30 points.
Okay.
And obviously to score 7.5 across 10 events, I need to be scoring around 750 points per event. But some events score really well and some events are awful. So like my 100-meter best would score me something like high 700, maybe even 800 points. Okay. Whereas my shot part only scores me like 600 points. So it's all the point system is actually based on like the world records from the 1960s.
Okay.
And then basically there was a lot of anabolic steroids getting floating around, and the event that they help the most in is the throw. So the throws are massively offset based on the world records. So me throwing a metre further in the shot is maybe only 50 points difference, whereas 5 centimetres is 30 points in the high jump. So it's there's a real spectrum. So it definitely favours the sprinters and the jumpers rather than the throwers, but you can't afford to leak points in the throws. Yeah, if that makes sense.
No,
so, but if you're going to cock up an event, it's the best ones to cock up are probably shot put, discus, javelin.
Okay, no, interesting. All right, and then Commonwealth Games, big goal, kind of sort of a bit of a different angle here. It's kind of psychologically, why do you think having a big goal matters?
Yeah, again, it's probably something that I've only really thought about this year, because everything up until then has been get back from injury and set up a coaching business that facilitates me to be able to be at this one moment I'm in right now. Because I've written about it a lot in my training diary about the difference in mentality now that goal is actually upon us. The benefits of it, I think, are that it's actually just so damn easy to motivate myself at the moment. It is so tangible. And everything else has been short-term sacrifice for long-term gain for the last 5 years. So just stay process-driven. Whereas now it's like, yeah, of course, stay process-driven, but that why is so close, I can almost touch it. So it's just so much easier to get myself up after a lactic session and do my circuits that need to get done, and it'd be very easy to just walk away at that point, say the bulk of the session's done. Hitting all those little things around saying no to staying out with your mates because it's going to fuck up your sleep cycle, waking up 10-15 minutes earlier just to do that little bit of mobility that you know is going to have a massive influence on how your body feels for the rest of the day, active recovery on your rest days. That means that when you come to actual training the next day, the quality from the very start is that much better. So I think, because I've never been one to actually say, no, you have to have a goal, because I don't think you do. I think you can have a bigger term goal around longevity, all around health, and improving your mortality rate through being fitter and stronger. I think that's really important. But it is lovely, and I've really enjoyed indulging myself in a short to medium term goal of chasing this score, and it's just made all decision making so much easier as to whether or not I will do something. The answer always comes back to, is it going to help you get this score? The answer is no, I'm not doing it.
Simple as that.
It's nice, but not having that, because all your athletes will have this same internal monologue, and they'll be making decisions all the time for themselves, and that's hard, that's tiring. Whereas when you don't have to make those decisions because it's so clear and obvious, having a coach helps, of course, in that respect. But that internal monologue is very black and white at the moment, and that's because this goal is so close on the horizon. So it's actually been really nice.
Has it been fun in a sense of that now you can obviously focus on like a performance goal, as opposed to I just need to be fit, which you've obviously been battling for a fair amount of time.
Yeah, it's been really liberating actually. Really, really nice. I've really enjoyed it. And it's been something that we've spoken about a lot with my coaches, with performance coaches and psychologists as well. Is there's been a paradigm shift literally in the last 3 months that is, I don't need to worry about my knee right now. What should I worry about? And I think it's really important that we understand that as long as you've as long as you're diligent about your processes and everything that you know you needs to go into your training and your recovery, just enjoy it. Just like, this is what it's about. And especially for amateur athletes, we spend a lot of time carrying niggles or injuries. Those moments where you're actually pretty fit and healthy, man, just embrace them. Stay in the moment, stay present, and execute everything that you need to do. But you're making memories by being in those moments, and that's what it's really about. And not to forget about the times where you've been injured, but you're paying your injured self back now by enjoying those moments, because that's what that previous you was fighting for.
Yeah. They sort of injuries common in decathlete? Did you have sort of people that sort of had common ground over, if you like?
Oh mate, it's such a nice community, those guys. I've had so many messages from guys who former decathletes and current ones as well, basically saying it's just great to see you back, great to have you back. We are competitors, we're direct competitors with each other, but the decathlon and the heptathlon you compete against the event, not necessarily the competitors. Because we all have our own demons within the decathlon where we struggle and where other people thrive. So you're never, of course it comes down to it, when you get to the 1K or the 1500, you are racing the guy next to you to beat them on their overall score. But event by event, it's actually, you're just trying to PB. You're just trying to do your best that you can do. And that's a really beautiful message beyond that. But I'm just reading actually one of the coaches of Roman Chevrolet and Tomasz Dvorak, who are former world record holders in the decathlon. And the main highlight of their coaching philosophy is, the older the athlete gets, the more important it is that you just get them to the start line healthy. And it's a really common trait with decathletes, is we get injured. It's such a demanding sport. Everything we do apart from the 100 meters is under fatigue. So the injury risk just goes up through the roof, and the forces are so high because it's all maximal outputs. You can't hide in our sport. So injury risks are high. Most common ones is stuff around Achilles, hamstrings, back are the biggest areas.
Yeah. No, I think it's, me and Jack spoke about this on the episode that we did, and it's, I guess with any athletic sports, but decathlon especially, it's like, you can't mess up. It's like now or never, and you just don't really get that in other sports. And you can have a crap day or you have a crap moment in like a football match or a rugby match, but then you've got, we were talking about sprints, so like you're going to have 20 other sprints in the game that
it's nice.
if you're on board for, you're fine. Like, forget about that other one.
No, but if you're not careful, that one moment can completely consume you. And I guess the way that you combat it, mate, is you just have to stay process driven. So you're attempting a PB height in the high jump, and if you come into that high jump, if you come into that bar thinking, don't knock this off, what's going to happen? It's got to be accelerate around the curve. It's got to be hold the curve. It's got to be hold the takeoff. Whatever your cue might be at that one moment, that's where your ideal performance state needs to be. So mental attitude around your performance is huge and it has a massive influence. But you're right, if you're not careful, and for spectators especially, because they can let themselves think in a certain way, but it's almost more painful because they're not in control. It's just tough to watch. Ask Tilly or ask my parents.
I feel like a lot of sort of it'll be like, it could be anybody like relating to someone competing. It's like they almost feel the pressure and the kind of emotions of it just as much as the person in it, and sort of the spectating side of it. Well, why do you think the like that competitive piece you're saying about the athletes is so, like, it is a competition, but it's not at the same time, and it's a very supportive nature? Because I feel like that isn't, again, sort of something you see across other sports. Like in other sports, you talk about being sporting and stuff. But there's not like a community or anything like that. Sort of like I always, doing rugby and football growing up, you sort of saw the differences between those, and that rugby sort of typically at least is very sporting. Like you have a meal and a drink after the game, whatnot. Football, you don't get that at all. But whilst you might be friendly with people, it's still, you go into war against one another, and it is very competitive. There's not but like at the sort of Olympics and whatnot, it's not uncommon to see like two opposing athletes like hugging and serenading each other, so on and so forth, right?
No, it's again, because in our sport there's so little you can do to influence your opponent's performance. There's a little bit in the events like the 1500 and some of the distance events where you can play with pace to affect them.
Sure. Okay.
And there's obviously a little bit of jostling, but not much, to be honest. And if you make too much contact, you get DQ'd anyway.
Yeah.
So I think the fact that all athletes understand their performance doesn't influence another person's performance in the same way it does in football or in rugby. I think that then means that we can afford to be closer, but again, even more so in the combined events, right? Like I said before, we all have different strengths and different weaknesses anyway. So yes, of course, leaning on one event, your strength is important because it can psych out another decathlete. Reality is, as long as that decathlete's locked in, they're blocking you out anyway.
Yeah.
So you just got, it's a really nice message, but you just got to focus on yourself.
Yeah.
And enjoy that journey. And it means that you can, it's really nice that you can celebrate another athlete's like PB jump. And in a lot of ways you can use that energy and feed it into your performance then as well. So it's an awesome atmosphere, and having come back to it now and done the South of England heptathlon, it's just such a reminder how much I love that community, but then also just the combined events as a whole, and that's where my strengths lie, but also where my love lies, is that pursuit of all round perfection. And it's such a nice snapshot of where you're at with your training in that moment anyway, because that's the best I could do in those 7 events on that day. It might be different to what I do in a month's time, but that was it. That was a snapshot, and we take from that, we learn from that. But we also learn from our other competitors as well, and we'll take note of where they were struggling or where we can improve.
No trash talking, man.
There can be, especially at that South of England champs, where I had a lot of my training partners, my direct competitors. We were talking some smack, but it's all in good faith.
Yeah. So no trash talking.
No,
really.
we'll give each other shit, and to be fair, you if it was like a big champ, you might play with it a bit. If you know someone's got a really weak event, then you might just plant a little seed in their head. But I would much rather, if it's their weak event and it's a strong event. For example, I'm quite strong at pole vault. I'll be quite positive in my body language. For me, and show them that I'm really confident here and that I'm super chilled. I'll do 4, 5, 6 warm-up jumps, and then I'll actually take my spikes off, because and it's like, right, okay, you're first, you're going to vault first, because it goes from the lower heights up. So I actually sometimes I'll leave the competition area and say, I'm going to go for a nap, guys, because you're so much lower. But realistically, mate, there's very little in our sport. It's not like
I think it's funny, because I had a thought on thinking back to, I can't remember what it would have been, maybe the last championships, and they had cameras in it wasn't the locker room, but like the prep area, which I don't feel like they'd really shown before, not the last time I'd watched anything. And even though everybody, like, it wasn't a big room, like, everyone was in quite close proximity in terms of who they're competing, but everybody was like they weren't worried about anybody else. No. Everyone was absolutely in the zone.
Yeah, that'll be the
focus.
That'll be the call room, and that for like sprinters or jumpers, like they'll literally, that's like moments before they're about to perform. So they'll be going through their final rehearsals. Most of them are just trying to stay present in the moment, zone things out.
No, I bet. Okay, and then just back to the injuries, because obviously I think that's something I've spoken about a lot, as people that know will know I've had my own battles, and then also I feel like it's always something that people can relate to across any level. Like everyone has a sort of fun, so to speak, of injuries, but they can happen to anybody, right?
Yeah.
But you said struggles with compartmentalising injuries emotionally.
Yeah.
Where do you sit with that now? Obviously off the back, and you're now fit, healthy, going at it again. Looking back on it, sort of what?
I think I would give really different answers depending on where I was in my recovery journey. And I think it's very easy for me to sit here and say, just go day by day, think about the process, just take one day at a time. It's really hard. It's really hard when you're in there, especially early stages as well, when you go from being so physically able to not being able to get yourself a glass of water, and getting up off the sofa is a challenge, and dealing with pain actually is really tricky. So how do I compartmentalise it? I guess you kind of have to sit in it, actually. I think is really important. You have to really take the time to process what's actually happened to you, why it's happened. I think is important as well. You reflect on it so that you don't just say, right, I've got to get back. An injury is part of your body is trying to communicate that something wasn't quite right. Whether that's just biomechanical or whether it is emotionally for you as well, whether you were too tense, too tight, or whether you're just in the wrong position, you can learn from that moment and that opportunity. So that taking the time to reflect, taking the time then to slow down, you're taken out of your daily, weekly routine all of a sudden because you're having to rehab or you're having to process an injury. Use that time. It's really important that you use that time to slow down, actually take the time to appreciate what you have got going on that is great around you, whether that is work, family, or how you're making an impact on the world, on society. And lean into those facets. Like we said at the start, none of us are pro athletes that are consuming this content. Really, there might be some, but we have and that's a real liberating tool to have actually as well. Don't see it as a hindrance. It actually means that you can, when you get to the track or when you get to football training, your mind is so clear because you've had work, you've finished work, now you're here. Whereas for a pro athlete, they'll eat according to training. They might then talk about training. They might go through tactics. They'll then go and train. All they've thought about is that sport, and whereas you have a real advantage by coming away from the sport. I think it actually physically recovers you really well, and so that's another great way that you can compartmentalise it. Is focus on the things that are going really well. That doesn't mean ignore the injury. It just means positive attitude is so important. Human willpower and human spirit is incredible for recovery, and knowing your plan and your structure of how you're going to get back to where you want to is a key part of that as well. And then finally is just maintaining perspective. At this third op especially, I was reading books like Happiest Man on Earth, Man's Search for Meaning, The Last Lecture. Yeah, but it was just like, hey Tom, come on. Yeah, I know you've had a third knee op, but stuff can be worse, man, and there'll always be someone who's had more adversity than you and come back. Actually, there'll be guys out there who've had 7 or 8 surgeries and got back to doing decathlon as well. So it's understanding what you need to do, what went wrong, how to address it. Appreciate what you've got that's good and really channel that, use that, lean on that. Whether that's friends, family, loved ones, or work as well. But and then maintaining a sense of perspective in this all-consuming world. It's very easy to stay narrow-minded.
Yeah. No, I think you're seeing being spoken about a lot more now is the busyness and with everything going on. Just focus.
Yeah, it's a lesson that whatever's happened to you, if you are injured, is a real. It's your body is trying to communicate with you, and probably definitely the first one, maybe the second one to an extent. I wasn't listening to it. After that first knee op, it was like, right, okay, get back. Cool. I was back. I did another decathlon within 12 months of my first ACL operation, which was great. And it was tough, but it was like record-setting kind of speed to get back. I was back in training in 6 months, back doing a decathlon in 12. The second one was more, and we'll probably come on to it, but I was still working in the city, and I was out of shape. I was deconditioned. It was my own fault. It's nothing structurally to do with the first operation. It was just that I was not in good shape. But it was the wake-up call I needed, because it then led me to leave that job and really pursue my love in the decathlon. The third one was, again, some of the lessons that I take from it are about slowing down and maintaining perspective and understanding that actually my identity, even though I've committed a lot of my life to it, it's not the only thing going on in my life anymore. So learn loads of different lessons from each of them.
What was kind of that feeling in, I guess, the emotions around the time when you did the third one and then going in and starting the rehab for the third one? Because I remember personally, like, from the first to the second, the first it was like, this is the end of the world. It was like the first injury that really put me out for a long period. But second, it was, to be honest, it sucked and I was miserable. But then quite quickly it became, right, it was crap. We didn't do things as well as we could have in the first time. Now I know what I need to do to get this absolutely right.
Yeah, you had a chance to rectify it.
Yeah.
Right, which is actually quite nice. And you went into the second one, there was no unknowns, which is quite liberating as well. That first one is scary. For people who haven't had their first major injury, I hope you never do.
Yeah.
But when you do, it's understand that everyone gets really scared by it. It's a scary thing. So when you come into that second one, it's kind of like, right, okay, this is the process. I've done it before, I'm going to do it again. That third one was really tough because there were the conversations pre-op were, listen mate, I don't know if you're going to be able to do decathlon again. I don't actually know if you're going to be able to run again. So it was really scary actually at that point.
And why was that just for you? Was that the nature of the injury in its own right, or was that just kind of the fatigue and the joints and whatnot?
Yeah, it was basically what's happened is the actual cruciate ligament. So for those that have had this operation before, they'll know. But you take a graft from somewhere in the body, hamstring. Mine was patella. So they take a cut of your patella tendon, they then feed that through into where the ligament was, or reattach it through there, and they anchor it either side of the bone. Basically, over time, that has become a little bit loose. So I have a bit of subluxing basically in my knee. We've had other operations like an anterolateral brace fitted to make sure it stays nice and tight. But it only subluxes really when the muscles aren't engaged. And what happened when I threw this javelin was that I landed on my toe rather than my heel, and my leg was bent rather than straight. So the muscles didn't contract properly. So my femur and tibia just punched each other basically. The joint took all of the force. And so basically my femur just punched a hole in the cartilage. And then it caused that bucket handle tear, which is where it kind of folds over and it locks. So I just couldn't then straighten my knee. So the reason that they were hesitant is obviously, listen, if I continue to do twisting, pivoting on that knee, it's going to put more and more pressure on that cartilage.
Sure.
So we have to be really, really careful. But I'm super grateful, that this surgery, the surgeon decided not to just get rid of the cartilage. He actually tried to regenerate as much, or reattach and re-sew up as much of it as possible. But the other piece is that I've had an amazing support team and an amazing support network of my head coach Rafer, but the rest of the team around that as well, paying attention to how the knee moves. We also took a year of just running the 100, 200 and 400 last year to see whether we'd be able to get back. And then we've slowly reintegrated in the decathlon training now. And I wouldn't have done it in any other way, to be honest. We had to be cautious because the conversations were, instead of just going, how do we get back to performing, were, do you want to be able to run when you're 40 years old with your kids in the garden? And it's an awful question for a young athlete to have to answer. But it forced me into a sense of perspective earlier than I think most athletes would do, because I'm thinking about long-term health. I'm not just thinking about scoring 7.5, I'm also thinking about how do I make sure that I protect my body. Actually, so probably learned the most by far from this most recent operation about humility, my identity, but then most importantly how to manage my body.
Well, I think we'll get into I'd like to get into what that support network, I guess, means and the impact of it. But what does that look like for kind of going back to the support or lack of support maybe that you get from kind of the governing bodies and whatnot? What do you get, like how much do you have to fund and generate yourself in terms of coaches and you said sort of psychologists and whatnot, how much do you get provided for you?
Yeah, so if you're in the system, so like if they're, when I was a junior, I was part of the Scottish National Academy, and it is a great support system and network because it introduces you to psychologists, nutritionists, behavioural psychologists, etc. But the reality is, mate, unless you're on actual national lottery funding, or you're not going to get anything. It's genuinely nothing. So it's been all self-funded since university, basically. Okay. So at university, I was a scholar athlete at Brunel University in Uxbridge, so pretty close to here. And I came down to be part of that setup and part of that training group. And there, it was a great support network, but very quickly after university, and I'm sure all of your viewers will notice this, that once you come out of that educational system, the support network is pretty poor, unless you're at the top. And for a lot of us, it's, right, okay, how do you make this work? So for me, it was, I just graduated with an engineering degree, so I went and worked in the city, which in hindsight, was it a mistake? Yeah, it might have been, but I wouldn't change it now. It kind of formed who I am. I got 18 months of sales training. Really enjoyed it, was competitive there, but it meant that I was deconditioned. So I was commuting all the time, I didn't have a perfect diet, didn't have perfect sleep hygiene, and a lot of time was attributed to not training and recovering. So high emotional personal stressors. But I had to in order to make a living, and train, and that was a really tough time. And then coming out of that, I had the second knee operation, which meant that I stepped away from that and used all my savings basically to pay for that second knee operation, and then retrain as a PT. And I tell you what was really liberating about that was it was actually just that all the decisions I was making were aligned with following my passion and my journey and my dreams. So that was really liberating, actually really freeing at that point. But in terms of structure and support, there's little to none. You can lean on the governing body and ask for help and advice, but in terms of financial, there's very little. There's just, and this isn't a slight on them at all.
No,
it's just understanding that there's very little money in our sport.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we'll come on to why that is as well. It's just not. It just doesn't make as much money as some of the major sports. But no, in terms of support, there's guidance, but ultimately you've got to fund it yourself. You're paying for everything.
Yeah. So you said about leaving London to sort of come out.
Mm-hmm.
Was that an easy decision? In like, I mean, obviously you could look at it both ways and say yes, it was, and no, it wasn't. But I feel like you speak very, I guess, clearly in terms of obviously it was an obvious choice. It made a lot of sense, but I'm sure that could have been quite different at the time.
I think if, in all seriousness, if I hadn't torn my ACL the second time, I think I may still work in the city. It's really hard, and this is something that I empathise massively with my clients as well, is sometimes you need a genuinely big trauma in order to actually take a step back and reassess what's going on. It's very easy for things to slip and just make tiny little changes over time. It can go both ways. You can make tiny little changes positively that will have a big long-term impact, but I hadn't realised how out of shape I was and how unhappy I was, because it was being masked by, like, I was in financial sales, so I was like, it's really fast and loose, and it was work hard, play hard, which is great for an athlete mentality, because you're happy to work hard, you take a lot of pride in your work, and you're therefore successful and you're competitive. But it was detracting from the sport that I loved and the training, and that's, take the sport out of it, actually just from a health standpoint, I didn't have a healthy balance between my work life and my physical training and socially and emotionally as well. It was a tough time. But if I hadn't had that knee up, I don't think I'd have been able to take a step back and really almost look at my life from a third person. I think it's a really important thing that we do regardless of an injury. And coming this time of year, we're filming this in December. It's a great time of year to do it, to reflect on the year as a whole, what went well and where you want to make changes for the following year. But yeah, it was my birthday. I can't remember which year this was now, but I'd had the knee operation. I was still in the job, but I knew I was going to leave. I hadn't handed in my notice yet. I hadn't plucked up the courage to do it. And I was walking across Waterloo Bridge. It was beautiful scenery, but it was like 8:30 in the morning. I was crying, and it was just a really stark moment where I'm not doing the thing. It doesn't feel right. Something was wrong. Again, constant conversations with Tilly, my partner, and my parents actually at that point, because it was kind of a, right, okay, if you do hand in your notice here, what is the worst that can happen? Now, I had an amazing childhood, two amazing parents, two great brothers, great friends. I had a big safety net there, but the reality was, yes, fine, I was in London, my family's in Scotland, but worst came to worst, I'll just move back home. Like, worst case, and not everyone. I totally get. Not everyone has that safety net. So some people's backs are against the wall all the time. So I'm very grateful for that. But I kind of took the leap because I knew, actually, listen, I'm going to step away from this. I had from having 18 months of working in the city, I had some savings. A lot of it went into the operation, and a lot of it went into paying for my PT qualification as well. So I moved in with Tilly's parents for 6 months whilst I got that qualification and continued to rehab. But very amazingly generously from them, because not everyone has that safety net. So I do totally appreciate that. But then from there, I was able to change coach as well, because my other coach had stepped away from athletics, and so I signed up with Ray for my head coach now, who's based in Basingstoke, and I got a job at the village gym. There's just a brand new gym opening up, and was like, okay, I've got to find a place right there. So I started renting this little studio apartment, nothing in it, no bigger really than this room. In all honesty, we had the kitchen over there and the bedroom was right here, mattress on the floor, but genuinely was probably the happiest that I'd been, because every decision I was making was on my terms. I was following a dream and a journey, and I was following my passion, and it was a lovely, refreshing period of time where you kind of get a reset of what's important in your life. It was my friends, my family, loved ones, and following your passion, your dream, your desire, and that feeds everything else, and it makes everything else seem really insignificant, which it is actually. A big house, a nice car, all these things are pointless if you're not happy, if you're not following the thing that you want to be doing. So loads of lessons learned after that second one, big life changes as well, and I have a lot of people to thank for that, who were there for me when I needed them.
Do you still recognise it now? I mean, just almost that. I think there's obviously plenty of good there you've spoken on, and having all that support. But just I think probably a lot of people can relate, sort of from a good and the bad point of view, in terms of being able to either enjoy or not enjoy your job. But I think the importance of that can't be understated at all. And like, do you still recognise that now in like the day to day?
As in the enjoyment of my job?
Yeah, just like how much you love it.
Yeah, so I think the job's an interesting one, because I think you can have pursuing a sporting success outside of your job, and I think you can just see your job as your job if you want to. I think that's okay. If it's a means to an end, I totally understand that. However, what I will say to everyone is, if you are in a job where you directly see on a daily basis the positive impact you're having on society, or even just on one person, it makes that job so much more rewarding as well. I'm very fortunate that my athletic pursuit and my job role, I have quite a lot of synergy. So everything I do athletically not only promotes my business, but I learn from it, and therefore it helps with processes and systems. So everything I learn from a nutritionist will directly feed to all my clients, because in our conversations and our catch-ups. So yeah, enjoying your job is really important, because again, if you're an amateur athlete, it's 75% of your day.
Yeah.
So if you're miserable for 75% of your day, how do you think that's going to impact your training? But if you're good enough at compartmentalising it, I think you can do it if you don't enjoy your job. But my biggest thing would be really look for where you're adding value in your job, and I bet you when you find that, it will help your training as well. It'll help your performance athletically.
Yeah, well, couldn't agree more, frankly. Okay, we're moving on to a bit of a separate topic we kind of touched on earlier, is kind of like the world of athletics right now and how it looks, obviously, from a spectator's point of view, but obviously you kind of see it from someone in it.
Yeah.
What's your general thoughts on it as a whole? I mean, we'll get into the nitty gritty, but obviously there's been these leagues that have emerged and different kind of events and sponsors trying to come in to change it. But why do you think it is the way that it is? Because I was having a bit of a think about this, thinking something you do in school, like it's almost ingrained in you, it's a common thing, it's well known, there's little, relatively speaking, barrier to entry when like you're younger. There's no reason why it shouldn't be a good sport, an attractive sport to get into, and yet reality is it's not as easy as maybe it looks, and there's lots of intricacies that have to be navigated.
Yeah, no, for sure. Where I think the sport is, I think it's on the precipice of doing really great things now. I think it's quite an exciting time to be getting into athletics. However, it's still got a long way to go. It really does. I think there's some really good people in really high places that can make positive influence and positive change.
Okay.
I think the sport needs to become more accessible from a entertainment standpoint.
Sure.
So I actually think the solution, not just in this country but in Europe in general, is integrating it in with the running trend, right? That's booming at the moment. And it's free. It's a free event running, and as close as it can be, track and field is pretty cheap as far as things go, as long as you've got a track and field facility. So I mean, this will definitely be something that I do when I step away from decathlon. Will be trying to host and promote events where the everyday runner gets exposure to these athletic feats, because I just don't think they do. And I think track and field, the issue with entertainment on it is the difference between first place and 8th place in a discus final is like maybe 10 meters. The 8th place's discus throw is still, to the average viewer, is incredibly impressive. So that difference is important. Perspective, I think, is really important in track and field. Like Mondo Duplantis's pole vault, and even my pole vault, I'm not saying it looks as impressive, but if you put a double-decker bus next to me when I pole vault, it looks pretty cool. So I think perspective is a really big thing in athletics. Getting spectators closer to the event, I think, is really important. So more like street meets, and abilities where you can see a general average athlete person competing next to.
Okay.
I think another avenue that hasn't really been explored is something like betting, and doing a little bit more of an athlete profile and an odds piece before a race. I think could be another way to get the everyday viewer more engaged.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, actually. It does seem to be a thing that generally across sports is starting to be done more, is you know more about the individual
Stats.
or the team, whether that's stats, but also habitually, or like you get sort of like days in the life. You're seeing more and more footballers, for example, doing YouTube.
Yeah, it's really
right,
important.
and so you build that connection with the individual. So then when you see them as a fan,
You're more likely to watch it.
Yeah, more connected, more sort of behind them. Right?
Totally. Best example of that is the NFL, where I follow a couple actual athletes, and I therefore watch those teams play.
Yeah.
And I think we can get there with track and field because athletes now have amazing personal brands.
Yeah.
Whether it's managed personally by them or by a team, their followers are more inclined to go and watch their meets, their track meets than any others. So I think we're on the precipice, because it's an individualized sport, that the individual athletes can really bring on the sport.
Yeah.
And we need that to be channeled in the right way. I think we're really close to being in quite a special place with it, but the first thing is there needs to be more regular competitions. So things like Grand Slam track are fantastic, but they've just got to stay in it. I think they might have tried to bite off a little bit more than they could chew.
I was going to say, in a lot of trouble now.
They are, but we can't be criticising events like this too heavily, because what the general message that they're trying to do and deliver is so great for our sport.
Oh yeah.
I just think in execution that they've struggled a little bit. That's not me critiquing, saying that they should have done X, Y, Z. They're trying to make the sport more accessible. They need to get bums. We need to get bums on seats. We need to get spectators in there.
It hasn't worked for like whatever reason. I don't know the details. I read an article and sort of financial problems with sponsors and whatnot. But I think even as someone who it doesn't sort of regularly and in depth follow athletics or whatever it is in that area, people were talking about Diamond League. Like it was getting coverage and people were getting excited about it. And like everyone was saying, like, "This is a really good idea. This is cool. This is interesting." Which, like, obviously everyone gets hyped up for the Olympics, but I think generally as a whole, athletics doesn't get that buzz about it almost.
No.
To the average individual.
Correct.
I'm not saying like in its space, I'm sure massive, right? But like darts, take darts for example. Recently, everyone's obsessed with darts. Like why? That's come from nowhere. I think it actually really stemmed from a Netflix special they did. Yeah. But the point is, if you can get that kind of
it's the entertainment delivery.
It massive.
And I actually think the immediate solution is around timetabling. So we need to look at the way that the events roll. If that makes sense.
Right, sure.
So if you've just watched 100 metres, you need to have something immediately to watch after that. So you need to then pan immediately over to the long jump, and you need to do all of the jumps, bang, 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 where the order is, how they're jumping. and then straight back to the next track event. And I think the timetable is hard, mate, to coordinate all of them.
Logistically.
But that is the solution. Is there should always be, and the Diamond League does do it well in that they crescendo to one of the main events at the end of the night. But that is something that is the actually watching athletics needs to be more of an entertainment piece. Whether that's backstory, whether it's timetabling, I don't actually know what the main solution is.
Okay. And then this feeds kind of quite nicely into the enhanced games.
Yeah.
Because this fascinates me. I'm probably more opposed to it than with it, but I get it.
Mm-hmm.
I get why it's working. I get why athletes are getting involved. And I get why there's like more, I guess, the excitement, as you're kind of saying about it. But I guess I like to think quite morally on a lot of things. And I guess from that point of view, it's hard to back it because it's not natural. It's like, it's, I that seems silly to say because that's it, it's nature. But
yeah, I'm still really interested to see how it progresses. The only thing that I think may happen is that one or two people might die.
This was going to be one of my questions, the health thing.
And then at that point, like, when does it get shut down?
Is that a genuine concern that like people could?
Well, the reason that a substance is banned is that it is detrimental to your overall health.
Sure.
So it may help you in the short term to do X sport, but long term it could kill you if abused. And that's the key, is that microdosing some of these supplements, you probably are okay. But taking them at the rate at which some of these athletes will. Now, the argument that they will then make is that we've got a massive team of doctors around all of our athletes that are making sure that they're safe. And sure, I get that, and fair enough. If they enter those games, they'll never compete in the clean equivalent ever again. Fine, you're entitled to do whatever you want with your body. The reality is, within the clean sport, we are pushing that line, and where you draw that line is a really fascinating one. That you hear all these stories of top athletes who have TUEs, which is a therapeutic use exemption. Amazing 5-10K runners who have some of the worst forms of asthma that you can possibly get, to the point where if you were walking up the stairs you would get out of breath. Do they have that? Should they have that? That is, it's quite ambiguous. But because they have an amazing team around them, they are right on the edge of that line. In terms of pushing. Going up to altitudes and taking oxygenated blood out and freezing it and then re-injecting at sea level to compete. It's your blood. You've done the work. Is that? So you're putting a syringe in your body. Again, I'm not here saying this is where the line should be, this is where it's not, but I think we're so close to that line already in terms of performance that it's really important that we do keep it, because there are guys and girls out there who, if you give them an inch, they'll take a mile, and then they run the risk of really hurting themselves as well. So would I watch it? Probably. I'd be quite interested. I think you'd be lying if you said that you weren't. Do I support it? No, not necessarily, and especially the same as you, ethically. I would want to know that if I don't go to the next Commonwealth Games and someone else does, that they are clean as well. And I'm sure they will be. But I would want, morally, I couldn't engage in a sport. I certainly couldn't engage in anything like that and then feel okay going and competing. If that makes sense.
What's been the general sort of consensus in like just the athletic community world and all that from individuals?
You know what? It's not being spoken about as much as you'd think. Certainly not in my circles. It might be at the very, very top level.
Sure.
And whether there's like people are like really pushing to try and poach and grab athletes. No, track and field has obviously had a horrific history of doping and substance abuse. Because it's such a binary sport. It's so black and white, same as cycling in that respect. That we, or at least we were brought up anyway, to be super anti anything that would be anywhere near that line anyway. So no, it hasn't really been a massive talking point thus far. Might change in the future, but thus far it's very much let those guys.
Yeah, I was going to say, I guess, see what happens when it comes sort of more in the public eye. Interesting time for the sport, let's put it that way. Okay, the last is kind of thing we obviously talked about in the preparation is partnership. Obviously you mentioned Tilly, but I've been reading Think and Grow Rich, and they speak a lot, and there was a number of lines, but generally they were sort of looking at how studying highly successful people, observing that many of them had the support and influence of a loving partner behind them. And I know this is quite relevant for you right now. Obviously, you recently proposed to Tilly. Congratulations, of course. And I know, obviously, both of you and how you've spoken about the importance of it. But I guess we'll look at it maybe from like a performance and from your training point of view. Just how important has having that been sort of on a basic level, if you like?
Yeah, no, for sure. It's really hard to put into words, actually, to be fair, how much having a partner that not only like shares your interests but is willing to blindly support you through them. Listen, this 12 months in particular, I've had conversations with Tilly to explain. Listen, I actually need to be even more selfish over this next period to really ensure that I look back on this period in my life and don't look back on with any regret. Because I would hate to do that, and I would just say that the communication with your partner is really important at that point. But Tilly's been amazing. I met Tilly in my final year of uni, and we started dating at the end of our third year. Basically, we've been together ever since then. So she's kind of seen me over the last 2 knee operations, and she's helped me get back from them. It was quite early on in our relationship, my second knee operation. So to see how hurt that made me, and how much of a part of my life athletics was, I think that was quite new to Tilly. So that took a lot of time within our relationship to explain that me going to train on a Saturday morning instead of going out for coffee with her is not a I don't love you anymore. It's that my first love was decathlon. And that's really hard to explain to someone who hasn't had that friction before. So it was my job to ensure that she felt comfortable and secure in our relationship outside of that, and that was really important. And that takes time. Time is the only thing that can, an exposure for her as well, of what the sport is like, what the demands are. But once we kind of wrapped our head around that together, it's only been positive influence towards my training. She totally gets the commitment that's required. She herself plays netball as well, which again I work really hard to show that I am in support of that and continue to support her. But she helps ground me. She helps tell me to stop being a dick, or stop overthinking something, or is that really the best thing for you right now? She's a voice of reason, and a great sounding board a lot of the time too. But she got me through some really tricky times, especially after this third knee operation. She was so calm and controlled when I would be super upset and overwhelmed. Whereas if I didn't have Tilly, I'd be dealing with all those problems, not necessarily on my own. I'm sure I would have lent on more people in my circle, but having her day in, day out be a constant has been unbelievably beneficial, and I'm really, really grateful to have found someone like her.
Yeah, no, of course. I think nobody's going to disagree with that.
No.
But no, I think it's fascinating and can't be undervalued or underappreciated when you do have it, because it's, as you said, almost on a daily basis. If you've got someone that's there for it all,
that you love, that you trust, and will support you no matter what. Actually, it means that you can go really confidently in the direction that you want to. Actually, and you're free. It's like a set of armor.
Can't beat that.
No.
Can't beat that, I think. Enough said. Okay, then your line that I love was, if I can come back from 3 knee ops and do the hardest event on track and field, I can do anything.
Yeah.
What does anything look like for you?
For me personally, for me it's not that the story ends here, but I look back at this period now actually, because I think one of the other questions you've asked me is like my greatest sporting success, and I genuinely think it's not being selected for GB as a junior, although that was an incredible moment in my athletic career. It was last weekend. It was getting back from that third knee op where a surgeon has actually said, don't know if you can do this, mate. And actually, 2 years later, being on that start line, and competing, not just being there, not just turning up, but actually then going on and winning it. That's probably one of the events that I'm most proud of. What does anything look like to me? I think it's just fulfilling my athletic potential. I don't actually know what that is. I don't know what the ceiling is, and I don't think anyone can. For me, since 2014, the last time the Commonwealth Games were at Glasgow, I was 16, 17 years old, and I was watching the decathlon and these absolute like man mountains hurling themselves over a bar or over some hurdles. I was just awestruck from them, and so to be even in the conversation of qualifying for that next year is an absolute privilege. Whether we get there or not is a little bit outside of my control now, but I'm sure as hell going to do everything that I can to get there, to put myself in the position of trying to qualify. But the message that I have for everyone is that genuinely, if you have something that you want to aim for or a target, there is no reason and there's no one stopping you other than yourself. You can genuinely do anything if you have enough willpower and enough human spirit to get there, and willingness to make it work. It's been so incredibly rewarding to be able to get back to this point, and having accepted that I may not, and that also being okay, so just kind of leaving everything out there. Really.
Can't ask much more than that.
No, mate, never can.
No, I think the other side of is like you can do anything, and that's so true, and it gets said a lot, but I think what almost doesn't get said is maybe you won't be able to do that thing that you want to go and do, but you won't unless you try. Like, just give it a go, and if it doesn't work, who cares? At least you did try, right?
Exactly, and it's the same point that I made actually after the second knee op, where it's like, what's the worst that can happen?
Yeah.
The worst that can happen is you tried.
Yeah.
You didn't get there, and oh my god, you'll have a bunch of memories and learning lessons from that. Anyway, you never lose there. You're always going to learn. And hey, what happens if it actually happens? Imagine it actually works out.
This is it.
So yeah.
No, it was that was like the biggest thing for me when I did the second knee operation. It was I just said to myself, because you hear it all the time. It's like I could have been a decent footballer, but I had a knee injury or I had the big injury, whatever it was. You hear it so much. I was like, I'm not going to be that person. I don't know what the ceiling is, but I'm going to give it a go. Yeah. I'm gonna go work.
Yeah, absolutely, mate.
You just got to give
kudos to it, mate.
Right?
Yeah, that's awesome.
Got to try it, man. Okay, no, awesome. Well, wrap up with some quick fire. Although the first one kind of links back to something we didn't end up speaking about, which was your go-to pre-race or event song. Because do you do it? Is music a thing for you?
Music's huge, mate.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's obviously it depends on the competition whether they're playing music during the competition or not. That's up to the host arena. It has a massive influence. We had our lifetime honorary president at uni. He has a PhD in music, psychology, and sport.
Okay.
So we spoke about it a lot, Costas Kardiopoulos, and it levels you up.
I'm a massive believer in it. I just think it's quite interesting. You see some athletes are really like in the headphones, and some are not.
Yeah, I'll play it in warm up. I think actually the older I've got, the less I found I rely on it. I think a lot of the lifts that I post, a lot of the time I won't have headphones on.
Yeah.
And I'll actually just be there because I'm like, well, it's just a raw reflection of where I am right now. But the minute you add music, I'm like, it's like 5-10% up. My music taste varies massively. So I could be listening to grime 1 second, listening to house the next, then drum and bass, and then jazz. Yeah. So it really just go with the flow and the mood of it. I understand how music can have an influence, but not necessarily one particular genre. I have music for certain events, so pole vault and stuff will tend to be a little bit more house club kind of music because I'm just trying to give off aura, confidence, fun. Whereas sprinting events, I want something a little bit quicker tempo,
Sure.
with a higher BPM. But no, it is super varied.
Mm.
Avicii levels is probably my go-to tune.
No, another bit of Avicii. Unfortunately, no longer here, is he? But talented person. Okay, favourite event at Decathlon?
It's really hard, mate. Probably pole vault.
Yeah.
Probably favourite event, pole vault. It changes depending on where you're at in your training, because you'll tend to attribute more of your time and energy to your weaker events anyway.
Sure.
Pole vault's been a strength of mine, because in Scotland we start pole vaulting a bit younger than the English guys, so we're always coming to those events a little bit more confident.
Okay.
But yeah, probably pole vault to train for and compete in is fun.
Least favourite?
Yeah, I really struggle with this. I actually don't have one. And for the same reason I gave on the response before, that you spread your time and energy over your weaker events more, and you actually fall in love with them. You fall in love with that process of getting better. I'd sort of say some of my weaker events are like shot put and discus. I actually love the events from a technical standpoint, and they're kind of like golf in that you tweak a little something else happens, and you discuss with your coach about it. Take a couple minutes, you go again, you try it again. It was actually a really nice social event, so I actually can't answer that. I don't know what
that's still a good answer. Favourite quote at the moment?
I actually don't know who it's from, but it's everything you're looking for is already within you.
I heard something to that effect actually recently. I don't know. Best lesson from your years of training?
If it was one lesson, just try to be as present as possible. Stay in the moment. It's the best lesson I think I could tell anyone.
What do you fall short in balancing that you'd like to get better at?
I think it's always the question, or the balance between success and happiness. I've read a lot of like athlete biographies, and the majority of them, whilst unbelievably successful, don't know if they're quite as happy as they could have been. So that's the thing that I always wrestle with. Actually, how much happiness do you have to sacrifice in order to achieve success? I suppose it depends on what you define as success. But yeah, that balance between the two, and just enjoying the journey of finding that balance. Actually,
yeah, privilege to navigate the two, right? 100%. Favourite book?
Favourite book is really hard, mate. I would say fiction-wise, just from this year, is Hemingway's The Old Man and the Sea. It's a little fiction book. I'd really recommend that. And then non-fiction, the Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz is a great little book. I read that last year. It is really good.
I was going to say, we'll have to take like a picture of this impressive book collection.
Yeah, I took a few down. We had our athletes like end of year review, and I brought a bunch of the books that I read this year actually, and we did a bit of a book club discussion from this year. But no, they're probably my two favourite. Andre Agassi Open is really good biography as well. Would recommend that too.
And lastly, what's your current book?
Current book, I tend to have a few on the go depending on the mood that I'm in. So my non-fiction book at the moment is The Power of Now.
Yeah.
Really good book. Would recommend that to any athlete actually.
By
Eckhart Tolle. The message is on other books like The Courage to be Disliked, or I would also recommend a lot of Ryan Holiday books actually as well. That's another tangent. But yeah, reading The Power of Now at the moment. And then my fiction book is called The Ginger Man, J.P. Donlevy. It's a lovely little piece. I won't go into too much detail on it, but and then I'm listening to an audiobook, Lives of the Stoics by Ryan Holiday. Okay. Actually, I'm massive fan of all of his work.
He's great.
If I was to recommend one book actually to athletes, it would be Ego is the Enemy.
Okay.
By him, and then if you like that, just the Daily Stoic.
Yeah.
Great books.
Okay. And the question that was left by Rose, who was the last guest, was everything happens for a reason.
Yep.
What is the thing that happened to you that you now reflect on as the reason that got to where you are today?
Yeah, it kind of ties back, doesn't it, to your very first question to me. It's the injuries.
Yeah.
Those three knee ops and what each of them taught me individually, I wouldn't be the person I am without them. Like I said at the start, I never wish them on anyone, but it's just using any point of adversity in your life as an opportunity to grow and redefine who you are. That's it.
I love it. Love it. Okay, and then what question would you like to leave for the next person?
Does it need to be like performance related?
No, anything.
Yeah, it would be. What's your guilty pleasure that you wouldn't like to admit in front of the camera? So whether that's some type of food, whether it's a weird hobby, whether it's something you do when people aren't looking, that kind of thing. Open up.
There you go. Right, anything else you wanted to?
No, mate, I really enjoyed. When you sent through the questions the other day, I really enjoyed actually going through them. But again, enjoyed it even more speaking through with you.
Likewise, thank you very much.
No, my pleasure.
Yeah, best of luck for the rest of the year. Thanks, mate.
Appreciate it.
Quality.
That was good, mate.